Okay, so we're on day 4 of personal narratives, and we're actually going to kind of combine a couple of lessons just to make sure we get all of our information for the day. So let's talk about, all right, so today our objective says I will find something called temporal words and draw events in order. We're going to talk about what temporal words are. Before we do that, we've been learning a lot about personal narratives. So I have some questions for you to see if you remember some of our important features. I want you to put your thumb up if you think you know the answer to this question. So my first question, is a personal narrative a true or a make-believe story? Remember, a personal narrative is a true story. It's a true story about, what did I do? It's a true story about an experience in your life. Remember this chart right here. A personal narrative, a true story about an experience in your life. All right. Number 2 says, does a personal narrative have 2 or 3 parts? So a personal narrative has 3 parts. It has, I'm going to zoom in again. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has 3 parts. I'm going to circle that answer. And our third question, to see what you remember, what important information does the beginning of a personal narrative tell the reader? Do you remember the beginning? Remember, a beginning of a personal narrative is going to tell me when the story is happening, who is in this story, what happened, and where did it happen. Those are our parts that the parts that we want to include in the beginning of our personal narrative. So I can just write, I can write who, when, what, all of these, and where. All of these WH questions are CWH question words. So yesterday we focused on the beginning. Today we're going to really focus on the middle and the end of a personal narrative. So the middle of a personal narrative is our heart of our story. It tells more about what happened. So listen to the story without a middle part. One day I woke up in bed feeling very sick. I slept and slept and slept. Okay, so now I'm going to read it again with the middle. One day I woke up in bed feeling very sick. My mom took me to the doctor. The doctor examined me. Then she gave me some icky medicine. Finally, I went home, took my medicine, and snuggled into bed. I slept and slept and slept. What do you think? Which one is better? If you said the second one, I agree with you. Why did we think it's better? I think that it tells me more things that I would want to know. I want to know, oh, you were so sick. Well, did you go to the doctor? What happened when you went to the doctor? What did the doctor do for you? Did you like the medicine they gave you? So all of those extra little things help to tell the story. So let's look. It tells us to look closely at the middle of a personal narrative. Do you notice the words in purple? These are called temporal words. And that might be a word you've never heard before, but all it really means is time related. So temporal words show the order that the events happened. They just help the reader follow along and understand the story a little bit better. So my purple words, the first thing. This says the first thing. Remember how we talked about words like first, then, next, finally, last? Those are our temporal words. Those are what let the reader know that the story, what's happening in the story. Well, this is happening at first, and then this happened, and finally this happened, and it lets the reader know, oh, well, this is closer to the end of the story. So let's look. So here are some words that you might use or might read in a personal narrative. At first, the first thing, then, all of a sudden, next, soon, later, suddenly, after that, finally, at last. These are all really important words to help you put your story in order. It's kind of like the snowman writing we did. First, next, then, last. Because if it wasn't in order, did we build our snowman correctly? We didn't. So having your writing in order from beginning to end helps your reader. So I'm going to find all of our temporal words, and then I'm going to draw the events in our order. One summer day at my grandma's house, I got a huge bottle of bubbles. I ran outside as fast as I could and started blowing as many bubbles as I could. First, oops, I changed my screen. First, oops, I wanted to write first. First, this happened. I'm going to draw a picture of that. It says, first, I blew little bubbles into the air and chased them. I caught two. Pop, pop. So I'm going to draw that. First, here's my person blowing bubbles. And they blew bubbles. Here's all the bubbles they're blowing. Here's some hair for this person. Kind of a silly drawing. I bet you can draw. There's their bubble bottle. I bet you can draw a picture better than this one. But here's all the bubbles that they blew, and he popped two of them. So here's my little bubble that popped. He popped two of them. So that's what happened first. I caught two. Pop, pop. After that, look, there's my other temporal words. After that, I tried making the largest bubble I could. I blew and blew and blew. Pop. It splattered on my face, so I'm going to draw him. Drawing or blowing the biggest bubble that he could. Here is that huge bubble that he blew. Well, there's the air. He was blowing that huge bubble. And then it said it popped. So I'm going to draw some little lines. All right, so these are my pictures of what happened in the middle of the story. And I found my temporal words, my first and my words after that. All right, so you are going to do the same thing with me. I want you to pause my video if you need to, but I want you to get out this page out of your binder. And it says, together as a class, we're going to read the story and circle the temporal words, and then draw our events in order. So this is the same story that we read last time. It's called Bath Time. I'm going to read it, and when I come across my words, first, then, and finally, I will circle them in my story and draw a picture of what is happening in my story. So I'm going to change my color to purple. Bath time. On Sunday, I gave my stinky dog, Jeb, a bath in the yard. First, I put him in a tub filled with soapy water. Some of the bubbles got on his nose. He licked them off. Silly dog. Then he tried to get out. I held him down. Finally, he was clean and jumped out of the tub. I hope he will let me give him a bath again. All right, so I read the story. I'm going to go back. I'm going to find where it said first. Here's the word first. And I can circle it, and I want you to circle it, and we're going to draw a picture of what happened first. First, I put him in a tub filled with soapy water. I'm going to draw that. So I'm going to draw my tub. Here's my tub. And it's going to have soapy water in it, so I'll just kind of draw some little bubbles right there. There's my soapy water. And I can draw Jeb. Kind of silly. Here's Jeb. Here's his ears. I bet you can draw a better picture than that. So there's Jeb in the soapy water. I want you to draw Jeb too. And remember, if you need to pause my video, you can. It says, and so then now I'm looking for my next one. Then what happened? I'm going to circle then, and I'm going to read my sentence. Then he tried to get out. Then he tried to get out. So I'm going to draw my tub of water again, and I'm going to draw Jeb trying to jump out of the tub. Here's his ears. There's Jeb trying to jump out of my soapy water tub. Here's his little tail. All right, he's trying to jump out. And then I see the word finally. Finally, he was clean and jumped out of the tub. So I'm going to draw Jeb all nice and clean. Here's his little legs. He's going to, little nose. Here's his little ears. He's going to have little floppy ears. And he's all nice and clean. Hopefully you can draw a better picture than I can draw. So here's Jeb all nice and clean because he jumped out of that soapy water tub. There he is. So I found all my temporal words, first, then, finally, and I drew a picture of what happened in each part. Remember, if you need to pause my video, you can. And yeah, so make sure you have that because you're going to need to submit it to Google Classroom. But I want to keep going for a second because I want to talk about all the parts of a personal narrative. So let's look at this. We're going to play a little game called Finish the Word to see if you remember the features of our personal narrative that we've learned about so far. So I'll read, and I want you to listen carefully. When I stop reading, you finish the word I started. So here it is. A personal narrative is a true If you said story, you're right. A personal narrative is a true story. And I'm going to finish that word, story. When you write a personal narrative, it is about an experience that happened in your life. It's happened to you. It has a sequential order with a beginning, middle, and end. Good job. The beginning of a personal narrative tells important information like who, what, when, and where. You're right. I know all this important information at the beginning. And the middle of a personal narrative tells more about what happened and uses temporal words like first, then, and finally. Good job. Those words are important. Okay, so here's our last feature that we're going to talk about, the end of a personal narrative. It lets the reader know that the story is over. So let's look at this anchor chart. Let's look at this anchor chart that shows 3 words or 3 ways first graders like to end their stories. Personal narrative ending, we want some feeling. It was the happiest day of my life. The feeling, we know she feels happy. It was the happiest day of her life. Maybe it ends with some hope. I hope I find another spider. Maybe we have some action. I snuggled into bed. Snuggled would be my action. Snuggled. All right, so let's look at this. Now that you know all the parts of a personal narrative, it's detective time again. Today we're going to read a personal narrative and we're going to find all the features. So first, listen to me. Listen to me read the story. A fun time. One day, my friend and I went to the beach to play. First, we jumped into the warm water and swam around. Suddenly, my friend stuck his hand out of the water like a shark's fin. He chased me. I screamed, "Ah!" Then I swam away as fast as I could. I tumbled onto the sand. I was so happy to be safe. All right, so we're going to find the parts of our personal narrative. Let's see. Let me change. My directions tell me for number 1, it says put a green box around the beginning of the story. Circle who, what, when, and where. So I'm going to change to green. This is going to be the beginning of my story. One day my friend and I went to the beach to play. Circle the who. Well, that's going to be the friend. Oops. And I, whoever the author is, I. And it wants me to circle what? What did they do? They played. They went to the beach to play. They played at the beach. When did that happen? It tells me one day. One day that happened. And where? Where were they? They were at the beach. Now, number 2 says put a yellow box around the middle of the story. Circle the temporal words. So I'm going to change to yellow. This is the middle of the story. First, we jumped into the warm water and swam away. Suddenly, my friend stuck his hand out of the water like a shark's fin. He chased me. I screamed, ah! Then I swam away as fast as I could. So I'm going to circle my temporal words. First, suddenly, then. Those are my temporal words. That's helping my story keep going in order. And then it wants me to put a red box around the end of our story. So I'm going to change to red. Here's the end of our story. I tumbled onto the sand. I was so happy to be safe. So my story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. My beginning showed who, what, when, and where. And my middle had my temporal words like first, suddenly, then, things like that. So now it's going to be your turn. Inside your binder is this page. I want you to put a green box around the beginning and to color in those words of the who, the what, the where, and the when. I want you to put a yellow box around the middle of the story, and I want you to circle your words like first, then, after, last. And then the end, I want you to put a red box around the end of the story. When you're done, you're going to submit a picture of this page and this page that we did together. I want you to submit both of those to Google Classroom.